Good morning, everyone. My name is Byron Amos. Today is February 20th, and this is our regularly scheduled meeting of the Committee on Council, but I must stop to say this is the very first meeting in the Larry M. Dingle Committee Room. So I would like to welcome everyone that has joined us this morning. Our chair is not present, but will return for the next meeting. I have been joined by several of my colleagues. Mr. Alex Warren, before he walk out, he's there. Jason Winston, of course, our good colleague and friend, Andrea Boone, and Amir Faroki as well. Next, we will go to the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion? Second. Motion has been made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is open. The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The adoption of the agenda is adopted.
Thank you. Now we have approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Motion has been made and second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes are approved.
Okay, so it has been brought to our attention that and hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Next, we're moving to adoption of the full council agenda. Is there a motion? There's a motion, has been made and second. Open the vote.
The vote is open. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The full council agenda is adopted.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our 2023 Committee on Council Goals and Objectives. They will actually be voted on at our next meeting when our chair is here. Now we have public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have 2 people signed up. First, Mr. Ron Shakir. Ms. Rachel Allwright.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel King Arnold Street. First, I'd like to thank everyone for your strong mentality that takes us to get through the day just to maintain. From a business perspective, you all have been misguided and misdirected. This is not your fault. This is due to centuries of historical and systematic greed, and for the law people, negligence. I'd like to redirect your priorities and your mindset to one of minimalism, to stop giving governmental revenue to people that are already well off. This is America. However, we are Atlanta, the first city to go green, the first city to bring everyone up to code. SB 62, please make sure that you take this slow. Offer this service to them first. Then in a week, follow up on the offer. Do not make it mandatory at first. This would be for the law people kidnapping. MARTA, focus on perfecting MARTA. This will help people even in my class. From a business perspective, MARTA is terrible right now, and it just needs a little bit more perfecting for people on my side of the town. You're really just missing out on a lot of revenue by not fixing the basic things. As for me, I'm a 27-year-old rapper, born in Atlanta, raised in Buford. Stop putting my bosses in jail and help build the hip-hop community, Zulu Nation. So what's the solution? What are the priorities? Water is my first top priority. We are humans first. Our basic survival need is water, alkaline water to be specific. Then food. Does everyone even have at least a walkable distance grocery store to get their fruits and vegetables? Sell this in gas stations if you have to. Shelter. Affordable housing does not mean cramming a family into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath due to lack of, and this is all due to lack of job opportunity and the historical, et cetera, we all know, okay? This is the turning point of historical and systematic greed, and for the law people, negligence. Stop giving people that are already well off more governmental money. The Beltline, what more infrastructure do they really need? What more infrastructure do we really need? There are people without water that we're talking about. Not just Atlanta, we're talking about the globe here, but Atlanta's the representatives, all right? So stop giving people that are already well off more governmental money. Perfect what you have. Take it back to the basics, survival basics. This is Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you. As our next speaker walks up, just want to let everyone know we have been joined by our colleague Howard Shook. And also, for the speakers and presenters, the mics are not plugged up. They are being picked up upstairs and being recorded. So the official minutes will still be official. Mr. Shakir.
Good morning, Ron Shakir. Southwest Atlanta. Ms. Redgrave, it's refreshing to hear your voice and your issues that you have raised. And I need to piggyback on some of them, although I don't eat pork. And I don't want to feed or receive pork talk that we should not be engaging each other in. It should be real, good, halal, kosher, healthy food that we should be intaking, political food. MARTA. We are losing a perspective to be able to engage MARTA. Councilmen who have been on this, that's been the board, that been the chair of transportation, and those who have sit on the board for the last couple of years have shortened the presentation of MARTA, shortened the engagement opportunity for citizens to talk about their concerns about MARTA. And I'm glad to hear Ms. Allred mention systemic greed. We hear about systemic racism, but I really like that term. I haven't heard it before. Systemic greed. I want to look at that because we know when we talk about racism, we talk about who that victim was in this country, who mothers and fathers and sons and daughters up to today have been the last and at the bottom and have been hit with the most crucial human treatment, but we still rise. The fact is that Atlanta is the widest income gap, and what you all administrations have done have widened that. Many of us come from institutions, from schools, Washington High, Douglas High, Southwest, where we came in a segment of this community left. But people are coming back to this community and impacting and causing a housing crisis. But they can't cause a housing crisis without having a social conscience crisis, where their impact and their business is causing African Americans, men, women, and children in institutions to not to be able to survive. Might have to leave this city. Their elementary schools, their middle schools, their high schools, numbers are going down, down, down because of greed. Something came from the Capitol the other day to pass out tents and have a camp here in Atlanta, Georgia. We closed public housing where children had bathrooms, men and women had rooms and living rooms and guests and part of making Atlanta and elected officials. But now we're going to pass out tents? Is that the conversation we're going to have to the citizens of Atlanta? And I'm going to respect the time here. I'm going to sit myself down, but I would like y'all to have consideration, to be able to address the fact why in this day and time we have less and less time taken away from us. Under your leadership, Mr. Faruqi and other newcomers, and Mr. West Jason, you know, your presence should be to maintain the history and to maintain the voices of the city of Atlanta, and you're taking it back and you're taking it away. But I'll be standing around, God willing, and we're going to address these issues. We are in a crisis, and we are act like one. And when we act like we are, when we see people passing out tents from the Capitol, we should not allow that. And I hope you were able to hear me because you said your mics was out.
Loud and clear. Thank you, sir. I think that's the end of public comments. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
We'll transition to our presentations. We actually have two today. The first will be the base update by the Office of Municipal Clerk.
Good morning. My name is Sean Brown with the Office of the Municipal Clerk. In the back is our Municipal Clerk, Mr. Forrest Webb, and our Deputy, Ms. Vanessa Walden. In front of you, you'll have two documents. One is the actual presentation, and the other one is a listing of boards that we have confirmed that are frequently meeting. They're just loading up the actual presentation. Well, I'm gonna start for other people's time. So, boards, authorities, commissions, etc., or base. Why is a base created? A specific need or concern has been raised. You gather professional minds within the community to examine the issue. Ideas are generated. A recommendation is made. Legislation gets adopted, and implementation happens. I'm going to the next slide. So how to create a base? When creating a base, keep the following in mind. What's the purpose of the base and the type? Is it a commission? Is it a task force? How many members do you want on this board? Make sure you have a quorum to vote on matters. Will the members need to be confirmed by the council? Even if not confirmed, the appointment needs to be read into the record, and an oath of office needs to be provided. Who, and most importantly, who's going to staff this board? Who's going to staff this board? Who's going to take the minutes, the attendance, and compose the agendas? Part of the problem is that a board contact, especially for these newly created boards, a board contact has not been identified. Some questions our office receives that require extensive research. Is the board currently meeting? How frequently is that board meeting? And when was the last time that that board met? Vacancy versus filled. Currently, the City of Atlanta tracks the appointments for 130 boards, authorities, commissions, etc. Of these bases, there are over 1,450 seats. 33% are vacant. The year in review. Almost 20% more appointments are being made now than a year ago. So why are the vacancy numbers continuing to rise? The reality is participation has struggled since the pandemic. Boards were suspended temporarily from meeting in person when the pandemic started. Since then, boards have struggled to meet quorum. Some of the board contacts have moved on and no one has replaced them. There lies the disconnect from our office, as we can only report the information that we have been given. We're simultaneously identifying boards that are currently meeting while new ones are being created. Here's an example. Over the last year, 7 bases were sunset. Of those 7 boards, 90 vacant seats were removed from our record. However, over that same time frame, 14 additional boards were either newly created or saw their composition modified. From those 14 boards, an additional 107 vacant seats remain. So even as older boards are being sunset, new boards are only increasing the vacancy rate. This list shows the boards that have met over the past year. If there are boards that you do not see on this page that are currently meeting, please let me know so the record can be updated. Lastly, for the general public that wants to get involved, there's a lot of information on the municipal clerk's webpage that speaks to the composition of these boards. Also, there's a lot of information posted online by the various boards themselves. A lot of the CIDs, Buckhead, Midtown, Downtown, as well as MARTA and Invest Atlanta, just to name a few, that post their agendas along with meeting times and dates for their meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for that presentation. Are there any questions? Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you for the presentation. That was really helpful. I've a couple of questions, well, 3 questions actually. First of all, what sort of training or support do we provide, or does, I don't know if that it would even come from the clerk's office in terms of just board service, governance, particularly for chairs? Do we do anything, or have we looked into maybe standardizing some sort of onboarding or ongoing training for those that are kind enough to be willing to serve on these commissions that we've established?
Typically, that's left with the actual boards themselves, like Beltline and different boards, like when new members come in. Are you asking in regards of like training for like the new members? Mm-hmm. Typically, like the boards, they run themselves, like APAB, yep. They run themselves. We collect the record. I'm not certain of if they have training, like I know certain ones do, like APAB and several boards, but I can't speak to all of them.
Yeah, I think that might be something I'll think about whether I add that to our goals and objectives. I feel like if we have folks that are willing to give time, particularly the newer boards or the ones that may not be as sophisticated as say APAB or some of the boards that have been going on for a long time, what we can do to equip them and prepare them to be as effective as possible, it works in our best interest as well. And so it doesn't have to be anything like a 10-day training, but even just a 1-hour session when we swear them in. So when they take the oath, maybe there's just a quick 30-minute something or another, but this is what it means to be on a board. Second question kind of along with that is that process. Like I know that we've run into some challenges with some of the recommendation entities that we have that don't have standard or consistent processes or procedures, even just how to run a meeting. And so I'm looking at our parliamentarian that maybe that is also something, a resource that we might be able to develop for them, rather than just saying, hey, y'all should run by Robert's Rules of Order. Maybe, at least, again, some sort of standardization or a playbook that we can provide to the members or to the chair or to whoever is supporting that, that entity. And the last thing is funding. I know that, I think that's something we should be thinking about, that perhaps as we have this list of boards and commissions and we establish all these protocols and training, we also look at which ones are the ones that actually have sustainable sources of funding, because that can always be a hindrance to their effectiveness. If they don't have funds to effectuate their work, I'm thinking, for example, the Human Relations Commission, we heard for many years wanted to meet, and there was a lot of things they wanted to do, but just didn't have adequate funding. And that would help us when we're doing our budgeting process to be able to say, okay, these, if we are forming these, clearly the issue is important to us. If we're trying to be supportive of it, we need to give them the resources to be successful. So, I mean, that's, as y'all continue managing this, be interesting to have that conversation about.
I just wanted to address your first, your second question. We do have on the clerk's website, we do have templates for mission statements and also bylaws.
Okay.
So that kind of like gives a framework of how to run and set up the different various boards. Also, there are in the charter section 3-401, there's different instructions on regards of how, that speaks to how these meetings and the information and the record keeping that should be kept. That information is there. All this information is posted on the municipal clerk's webpage.
Forrest Webb III, City of Atlanta Municipal Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Brown. That's also what I wanted to bring to your attention, that I did not want to lose sight of the fact that we are the office of record. And so subsequently, we don't
That's fair.
get in the middle of helping or assisting or dictating how a board or commission should be ran. However, we do have resources that we provide to them, and we answer any questions that they may have of us, but we try not to automatically insert ourselves in the process, because one board may feel that we're alienating them because another board may be asking more questions. In addition to that, what we have found, that I believe that the recommendation in regards to our parliamentarian or Robert Rules of Order, that will be a great suggestion or great for us to implement. I would like to bring to your attention one of the biggest challenges that we have right now in managing the boards and commissions. What you've seen, the presentation, is not magic. It is something that is managed every single week. And subsequently, I would have to say off the top of my head, probably more than 50% of the boards and commissions don't give us any feedback. Don't let us know when they're meeting. Don't let us know what their bylaws are. Although we may help them set up their bylaws, they won't share that with us. Don't share their attendance records with us. So subsequently, if there are any changes on their particular board or commission, we don't know until either the media or a citizen inquires or brings something to our attention. So that's been somewhat of our reluctancy in being super aggressive and providing resources. There has to be a partnership here. And I do believe that the individuals who are serving, they're serving well-intended. I mean, otherwise they would not be volunteering their time. But the creation of the boards, that's something we have no say-so on. And I would think that the contact individuals, there would be some standardized approach to how you create a board. Mr. Brown touched on it a little bit as we work for the governing authority. So subsequently, we don't want to appear to be malcontents when we say, well, it should be this way, this way, this way. But we do need a lot more interaction with the boards themselves.
Yeah, I think the caution of being very judicious on our side in terms of not just forming a board or commission every 2 weeks is well received. I also, I'm sure all of us have heard from folks we've appointed to commissions, and they feel, oh, you've kind of left us here to fend for ourselves. And so I think that's a conversation we can continue to have. I mean, they are giving of their time. You've got limited capacity and authority, quite frankly, in your office of what you can and can't do. But I think we just need to be mindful about how we are facilitating these entities that we're creating, because there's a good purpose, but we just need to make sure that we're making them as effective as possible. So I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, because the question is well received. It's a lot of times we feel like we're operating on an island and that everyone doesn't know. So I really appreciate you even bringing that to light.
Thank you. Any more questions, comment? Saying none, thank you for the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next presentation is our 2022 annual report from the Ethics Division.
Speak loud. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing us to appear before. My name is Jasmine Sangova, and I'm currently serving as the ethics officer. I do have members of my staff here with me today, and I thought it was important for me to appear before the committee and talk about our 2022 annual report, because this year we will be celebrating 20 years of the Ethics Office, Ethics Division now. So I really felt that it was important for us to appear here and highlight some of our work and as far as where we are today. You should have a copy of the report. We have provided you with a hard copy. We sent electronic copies earlier this month. However, you should have a hard copy as well as a copy. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now? Sorry. So you should be able to see that with the presentation. All right. Sure. All right, let's see if I can get this, sorry. All right, so as we as I said 20 years ago, our first ethics officer that established this office had one goal in mind, establishing and maintaining a strong ethical culture. And we continue to build on that goal with more resources and staffing than we've had in previous years. However, we do know there's still more work to be done. So as far as who we are, for the benefit of the public, we are an independent office that is currently housed in the Office of the Inspector General. I am appointed by the governing board of the Office of Inspector General, and I serve a 5-year term, subject to confirmation by the City Council as well as approval by the mayor. What do we do? And I'll be going through some of those areas as part of my report to you today. We provide training, general and targeted training. That's one of our critical functions. We provide written and oral advice to city officials and employees. We investigate complaints that fall under the jurisdiction of the Code of Ethics, as well as coordinate the integrity line, and we manage the financial disclosure system, which is another critical function. All right, so now I want to show you our current organizational chart, and that just tells you all the positions that we have. We currently are 11-member office. When I first was appointed, we were only, I think it was only 3 of us. So I've seen that we've had steady growth over the years. And you will see that we do have a diverse range of positions in our office. And currently, we do have 2 vacancies. Now, those are positions that we created a few years ago. We are working to fill them, both of those positions. And we actually just hired 1 new position, which is the executive assistant. So we just hired that person, and she's being onboarded. All right, so I'm going to kind of walk through just briefly the areas that are reflected in the report. So under operations, our office does organize the board meetings for our governing board. We did fill 4 vacant positions on the board. I did hear the report from the clerk's office. Filling these positions are often challenging, so I'm really happy to report that we have all the positions on the board are currently filled. We were able to work with the Department of DEEM to acquire additional space, which we're badly in need of, and we're still working in terms of the build out of that space. We received additional funding for 3 positions. I just talked to you about 2 of those that we're seeking to fill. Reclassified 2 positions, and we just recently hired again 1 staff member. All right, so moving on to public education and outreach. So we did create and launch a new citywide online ethics training course, and I'll talk a little bit in the next slide specifically about ethics training. We conduct in-person training sessions as well for different city departments, as well as for vendors and contractors. We send out our messaging, which of course is to promote ethics awareness, and we publish a newsletter at least 3 times a year, including what we call is the holiday gift reminders. All right, so specifically about training, and this area is always really important for us. So of course we provide virtual and live training to officials, employees, board members, vendors, and contractors. So for 2022, we trained a total of 7,301 individuals. And of that number, we trained 7,126 city employees, which represents 94% of our city population. Why is that so important? Because part of those numbers also included training to our field workers. So what we did was the staff worked with senior management in different departments, such as Watershed, Public Works, and I believe Department of Transportation, to schedule to go out and do training for employees that may not have access to computers. So not only are we focused on electronic training, it's also important that we are providing training to employees in the field. We also work with the Department of Procurement to attend bid conferences so vendors and contractors know who we are. And we're actually working on getting a short video that will be posted to the supplier website. As far as ethics advice, we also provide ethics advice on a routine basis. For 2022, it was about 202 requests, and we issued a few opinions as well as amended a few other opinions that needed some readjustments. All right, for our, in terms of just the numbers, if you see the numbers here, we just like to show this so people know the areas that we're getting advice from. For 2022, tickets was really a big area, as well as outside employment. I think the outside employment question came a lot because, of course, we were during the COVID period as well as the return to work. So that just kind of gives you some of the trends we're seeing. All right, moving on to financial disclosure. We do, of course, manage, which is a critical part of our function. It's mandated by city law. As far as for the 2022, we did end at, I would say, a pretty good rate of 89%, but 93% total. We did have some delinquencies of people that did not file, which is pretty what we always expect. And we did collect fines, sanctions for, those that may have not filed on time or did not file at all. And as far as our total number, we're showing now a total amount, and that's including not just city employees, but it's also including our board members of 3,427. That number has almost doubled, I'll say, in the past 7 years. And it's a process as we continue to fine tune to make sure that we're capturing all the people that need to file in terms of the filing requirement. Okay, I'm wrapping up a few more areas. Audits of disclosure statements. So back in 2017, we did start auditing disclosure statements, and what we're really looking for are any errors or omissions in filing, or where people may have filed something we may need to review. Currently, we are a couple of years behind because in terms of staffing, so we just completed our 2020 audit of those statements, which is about 8%. We make sure we're following standards. We look at random selections as well as certain positions. And hopefully we'll continue to improve that process when we move to a more automated process. And I'll talk about that towards the end. Investigations, we did open about 27, matters, closed other about 20, collected about $2,500 in sanction payments in ethics cases. Just on the integrity line, we received 202 integrity line complaints. That has increased. In fact, it's doubled. And we're thinking, again, it has to do with the fact that we launched our training, as well as the fact that we're doing additional messaging. All right, and this just tells you the top areas for the complaints received through the integrity line. So finally, as a recap, in terms of organizational updates and projects. Again, we were able to successfully launch our new e-learning training, and I think that's because we did that through Oracle, partnering with the Department of Human Resources. As far as our financial disclosure process, we continue to work on enhancing the system as well as increased security for the e-file system. And our audits, hopefully we hope to develop an automated audit process. And for our ethics division website, we're looking to update and streamline the website. So that really pretty much concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, colleagues. Do we have any questions?
I have a question regarding the workforce and whether I know at some point you had a flyer that gave instructions on what was ethical and what was not ethical. I would implore you all to please keep that flyer out because in moving around, I do realize that some people don't realize what is ethical and what is not. For instance, I had a neighbor that did not realize that borrowing water from the city was not ethical. Honestly did not realize that you cannot do that. Tissue, soap, things like that. So we want to make sure that our workforce is always thinking of what is ethical and what is not.
Thank you. Okay.
Great presentation.
Councilman Juan?
Yeah, colleagues, I just want to remind everybody there's a work session on Wednesday. There's a proposal to move the ethics office out from under the Inspector General's office, so we'll be discussing that. But I do want to thank you for all the hard work that you and your team do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you for the presentation. That'll get us to our agenda. Ms. McMichael, will you sound items 1, 2, and 3 as a block, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. 23C 5004, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Mr. Chevin King III to serve as a member of the City of Atlanta Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Oh, one moment, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. 23C 5013, a communication from council members Mary Norwood, District 8, Liliana Battiari, District 5, Alex Wan, District 6, Howard Shook, District 7, and Matt Westmoreland, Post 2 at Large, appointing Mr. J.P. Mazakite to serve as a member of the Stakeholder Oversight Committee. 23C 5018, a communication from Ann Phillips, President, Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, submitting the appointment of Mr. Kelvin Williams to serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board in the Neighborhood Planning Unit, NPU Group A through F category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years. 23C 5020, a communication from Councilmember Dustin Hillis appointing Mr. James Martin to serve as a member of the Stakeholder Oversight Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
Thank you. All three of these came from their respective committees. Favorable, is there a motion?
Second.
Motion made and second. In discussion? Seeing none, open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. These items are favorable.
Thank you. You sound the next 2, please, on resolutions, number 4 and 5.
Mr. Chair, 23R3225, a resolution by Committee on Council appointing Sarah Stein to the Board of Directors of the Atlanta Development Authority, Invest Atlanta, as the City Council appointee in the business category for a term of 4 years. Said term to begin upon approval of this resolution and for other purposes.
Thank you. I move to refer these back to CDHS Committee. Motion has been made and second. In discussion? Seeing none, open the vote, please.
The vote is open. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is referred to its respective committee.
Thank you. Sound item number 5, please.
23R3226, a resolution by the Atlanta City Council appointing Councilmember Keisha Shun Waits to serve as the Atlanta City Council member on the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission for a term of 2 years for the purpose of performing the duties and responsibilities of the commission for the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
I move to refer this item back to Public Safety Legal Administration Committee. Motion has been made. Seeing a second. In discussion? Well, we have a discussion. Why is it going to Public Safety? Okay. I withdraw that motion.
You're correct, Mr. Councilmember Wan. It is City Utilities.
So I withdraw my original motion and make a motion to refer this back to the City Utilities Committee. We got a second. Motion has been made and second. In discussion. Seeing none, open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. It's referred to City Utilities.
Yeah, with that being said, that brings us to the end of this meeting. Any general remarks? Seeing none, we move to adjourn. We adjourn. Thank you, everybody.